Uh, your experience with Coach Elco, I know it goes back a while. What did you see in him when you guys were young coaches, and what are some of the things that he's done so well?
It was back in 2005. Dave Kloss was the head coach at Richmond, and me and Mike were on the same defensive staff. We've kept in touch. He's always been somebody that I've connected well with, and he's smart. He takes a lot of pride in his work, works hard at it, and so I'm glad for his success.
Looking back on the Syracuse game, the job that you guys did up front, especially against Schrader, just how pleased were you with that? Obviously, you had success 2 years ago. For it to be kind of the mirror opposite.
Yeah, I mean he's been a problem in our league for a number of years. We've got to compete against him 3 times, but I thought our guys have really come on. When you go in the year, you're trying to get as many players involved in the weekly game plan as you can because it builds depth. You're trying to make sure the guys that have the ability to help you are involved. But when you do that, there's a lot of different pieces, that are playing together, and just to continue to see them, come through on game time and to be able to execute plans. And I was happy for our guys, especially up front. I thought we did a good job.
It seems like the last few weeks for Shaheen Brown have been really productive. I guess what's clicking for him, or what's leading to that production?
Well, I mean, this is, I don't want to say he's a young player, but he's molding into, he obviously last year we kind of forced the role onto him because we knew what was there. This year, obviously, he was going to get more opportunities. I think he's taking advantage of them. He still has moments that he would like to, get better at. But, I think Shaheen, he's got an incredibly high ceiling, both as a player and as a leader. And so we're going to continue to force that with him. I thought he was impactful in the blitz game, which helps us. We're looking for that. And so I think he's doing a lot of good things right now. And, we're excited to see what this week has for him.
I feel like this is a question we asked you a lot about last year, but less this year. Preparing for 2 quarterbacks, obviously what does Riley bring and what does the backup bring? How are their games different, or are they kind of similar? And how are you going to prepare for both?
We're just going to prepare for both, and obviously, Riley Leonard has been, last year he had a really good year, God bless you. We didn't play against him, but just having gone back in the summer and watched all of his tape, he does a great job of just having, he's a really good competitor. He does a great job with his legs, getting out of trouble, extending plays. But I think what he does such a good job of is his accuracy with different arm angles. No matter where the rush is, whether it's a pressure, whether it's a defensive lineman in his face, he drops his arm angles or raises his arm angles probably as good as most quarterbacks in the country. And so you put that with athleticism and good enough arm strength to be accurate at all different levels, and he showed the ability to step up when times were needed for that team here in the last year and a half. So obviously brings a challenge, and, probably expect him to play. And, if the other guy plays, then we play against him. And, not to make it obvious and candid, but, it's what it is. At least, we have the game against NC State that, he started the game and played. He's been in, at times during the year just for mop-up duty or other situations. So, we'll study both players, and we'll have a plan ready for both.
I know there was a healthy rotation early and really throughout that game. I don't think many guys played more than half the defensive snaps. When you get that, and there didn't really seem to be a drop-off regardless of who was on the field, I guess how encouraging is that for you, that it seemed like it was a consistent effort throughout regardless of who was out there?
Well, that's why rotations and planning early in the season, you go into game 1 and you put a starting group out there and you got to make decisions. Okay, when do I rotate this position? When do I rotate that position? When do you change, to base, to dime, to nickel? And, you always want to win the game, and so in order to win the game, you got to try to win each play, win each series, win the situations. But then there's a next game coming, and you're trying to develop the depth because you're going to need it. Guys go down or guys get tired, and you have to have guys ready for those moments. And, it's a different approach when you put a guy in because he's the next man up because somebody got hurt, and as opposed to when you roll a guy through because you have confidence that he can help you, even if there's somebody in front of him playing at slightly higher a level. And so that's the balance of a coach, is you're trying to get the right rotations in. And so that's why we force rotations, especially early in the season. Now we play so much, match coverage and connected coverage that you got to play with people. And when guys see one thing as something, you got to make sure you're on the same page. And so when you're forcing guys into rotation and you're playing a lot of different people, you got to kind of have one mind out there. And that's the constant battle that I think as the year goes on, you're able to get better at that because you just have more reps booked. But we're playing better football and, excited for this week.
On Farmer's sack, it looked like when the tight end went to release, Pat went with him.
Mm-hmm.
It seemed like the awareness that whole game, it seemed like everybody knew what was coming. And is that as well as they've done that type of just recognition? And
yeah, I mean, I think in spurts, that has happened throughout the year. You know what I mean? Felt pretty good in most of the games, to be honest with you, as far as, there are some teams that say, hey, listen, now this is their plan. But when you have good players and you have a little success, teams go back and try to find out what other teams did against you. So, there are some things that we're repping that maybe LSU showed, and even if it wasn't successful, I know that it could be a good play. And so we'll make guys aware of those things. So I think as the season goes on, you see a lot of that anticipation. And some of it is just built up reps, Ira, and just guys have a good sense of how people are going to respond to things that we do. And, there are still some things that we've been practicing for weeks now that we haven't used yet. And you're trying to get those things ready. Sometimes you put it out there before it's actually ready because you think it's just that much more of a valuable scheme or usage. So you're gonna use it maybe a little bit earlier. But for some other things, you just keep trying to pile on the reps. You keep trying to pile on the experiences so you guys react full speed. And I think that's what you saw Saturday, and, there were, some things that we did that we've done a lot. There's some things that we did that we tweaked a little bit that maybe was a different look too. And so, it was just good to see our guys and to see you see it that way because that's how I saw it too.
Duke running back Jordan Waters currently leads the ACC in rushing touchdowns with 9. What kind of challenge does that bring?
Well, their offense leads the ACC in rushing, and so, and listen, they have 4 offensive linemen that are grad students, a 6th year. The other one's a 5th year. I think the running back you're referring to is a senior or a grad. 2 of the 3 wideouts are seniors or grads. The tight end, the quarterback is, so, I mean, they've got a very veteran, older group, especially up front. And so I think when you have that, you are able to create run game. And I also think, with the way they manage their football program and their team, I think everybody wants to be number 1 in rushing, right? Because it creates other opportunities in the throw game. It creates time of possession. It creates physicality. And, knowing Mike and, so knowing how that program's probably put together, I'm sure that's been part of the vision. And so it helps create that vision and put that vision into play when you have older veteran guys up front and you have 2 good tailbacks. And then you got a quarterback that, you watch the Notre Dame game, every time they needed to play, somehow, some way he made a play with his feet. He's done that for a year and a half now. So, what that's going to look like Saturday, I guess we'll find out. But, they obviously have done a really good job running the football this year.
You mentioned a few times different areas of growth for you guys this season. It seems like a lot of that is reps and experience for players. But how much of it is also, or could it be, like you getting comfortable with the player and knowing, hey, this is what this guy does well in this situation? I guess what is like the balancing act to that growth?
Yeah, I'm comfortable. Been with these guys a number of times, and now it's just, they have to. I have to think like them, and they have to think like me, and that's important when you go into each game. And that's why you have the meeting times, and that's why you have, time together. And it's important for me, especially in the middle of that defense with the linebackers and the safeties, that because they're the main communicators. That when they see things, they may ask, and we've got to be on the same accord with that. But I think you want to be as consistent as you can and as dominant as you can every play, every series, and that's the standard. Sometimes you don't meet it, and my job is to make sure that all the things that go into that is getting done. And then when it comes to the moment of truth, whether the play's made or not made, I got to keep going back to what's the preparation look, what's the timeline of preparation, what's that look like as far as the effort out there on the practice field, in the meeting rooms, and the walkthroughs. And, I really like coaching this team, and I really like this group that we have on defense. And because every time I ask them to do things, they try to accomplish it. And obviously there's room for improvement in all ways, or else I wouldn't be here, right? There's always going to be opportunities for, corrections or improvement. But these guys listen, and they care a lot, and they want to play really well.
Someone that played, seen more snaps. I don't know if that's been design or just how the game flow went. Omar Graham, we've talked about it. Like you call him one of the most improved players. What has he shown, and is he part of that rotation now, or is that just game by game kind of thing?
No, he's still part of the rotation. I think, that rotation. Obviously with Tatum being down 2 weeks ago, but you go into that Clemson week, and Omar, it was basically a 4-person rotation. Which allowed us to keep those guys fresh. So in the fourth quarter, in the second half, we played really good football. And, Omar has a really bright future, but more importantly, is a bright present right now. And so, yeah, he's fully in the plan week to week right now. His reps are there, and, he's got to keep taking advantage of those.
I don't know if you ever get to watch any of the player interviews, but after the game, Josh Farmer and Shaheen were both there. They both had great games, and there just seemed to be like a lot of humility about them. Is that indicative of them, this whole defense? Didn't seem forced. It seems.
Yeah, I mean, everybody wants attention of success, but I think the strength of the individual is the group. And I think we have a lot of great individuals in that room and on this team. But I think it starts at top. I mean, look at Mike Norvell. I mean, he has all the reasons to say, look at me and look what I'm doing. And he just shows up and he goes to work every single day. And so when your players see that, that's just how we act. That's how we respond. That's how we develop the program. That's, listen, every day we're constantly trying to coach that and develop that, but you got to showcase that as a leader yourself. And it doesn't guarantee you. We may say, hey, on this play, you got to end up in this gap when this guy does this. Well, in the same framework, we say, hey, when you have success, you understand, it may have been a great pass rush, Jared, but if it wasn't for Josh Farmer or if it wasn't for Renardo covering that guy, it probably wouldn't have happened. And that's the same as an assignment, in my mind. It's all connected. And so I think you can give the message, but credit to our players for actually listening and using the message in a way that it comes off, because it's not fake, because you can't make it up. And but it is constant. It's something that comes down from Coach Norvell, and I think our players do a great job of living in that mindset. Thanks, Adam. Thanks, guys. See y'all.